All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the May the 19th convening of the Baltimore City Board of Municipal and Zoning Appeals. Before we get underway, a few house rules. First, if you have a cell phone, a pager, anything else that plays any kind of ringtone, makes any kind of audible electronic noise, we ask at a minimum you please turn such devices to a vibrate only if not off position. Similarly, if you need to have a conversation with someone, we ask that you please take that conversation out the double doors to your rear. And the reason for those rules is kind of simple and straightforward. You'll notice that there are a number of microphones which are arrayed around us up here, and those microphones are all very sensitive and they can pick up even small conversations and noises from the gallery. Things going off in the gallery, conversations and the like, are generally disruptive to the proceedings, but also they interrupt the recording of these proceedings. The microphones are not only for the purpose of amplification, but they're also for the purpose of recording. And those of you who are sitting forward of the wall can turn around and see that there are 3 video cameras mounted on the wall behind you. There are 2 video cameras up here mounted on the wall behind us. And those cameras are recording these proceedings for broadcast on the city's cable network. So please, if you have a cell phone, pager, or something like that, please have that in a vibrate only position so that you're not disturbing the proceedings. And similarly, if you need to have a conversation, just take that out the doors to your rear. We will be voting at the end of the day once we've gone through all of the cases, and you're certainly more than welcome to stick around for a civics lesson if you so choose. But if you have other things to do on what is an otherwise splendid late May afternoon, that's certainly understandable. If you take out pen and paper, I could read off the number for the zoning board office where you can call in the morning and find out how we've ruled on your case. I'll read this number off a couple of times to give you an opportunity to get the number down. That number is 410-396-4301. Again, 410-396-4301. You will, however, need to wait until you receive the formal written outcome of your case. It should be forthcoming in about 3 to 4 weeks before you're able to get your permits. We certainly ask that you please not build in the city of Baltimore without first obtaining proper permits. If you haven't already done so, if you're here in opposition to any case here today, we ask that you please sign in on our signing sheet, which is being held up by Mr. Henry. The signing sheet allows us to know not only which cases generally have opposition, but also allows us to know who needs to receive those aforementioned written notices I just talked about. Similarly, if your case gets postponed, we need to know how to contact you to let you know when the case is going forward. So please sign in if you're here in opposition to a case. The procedure for the cases today are as they always are for our cases, which is when the case is called, the appellant will come forward and stand up here to our left or your right. The opposition, if any, will also come forward at that time, and they will stand to our right or your left. Once everyone is up here, we'll get you all sworn in, and the appellant will be given the opportunity to go first, answer any questions that the board may have, tell the board the issues that are involved in the appeals, and generally allow the board to know what it is they're proposing to do. Once they're done submitting their evidence and putting on whatever testimony they would like, we'll then turn to the opposition, who'll be given the same opportunity. At the conclusion of the opposition's case, we'll then turn back to the appellant, who'll be given the opportunity to respond to any points brought up by their opposition, and also be given the opportunity to offer a closing statement. We won't be going back and forth, unnecessarily delaying things into the afternoon or evening. We will generally be calling the cases in the order in which they appear on the docket once we first dispense with some preliminary matters. First, we have one case which is postponed, 2015-132, 827 South Bond Street has been postponed and will not be heard today. If you're here on that case, please sign in on the signing sheet if you haven't already done so, so we can let you know when that case will be going forward. But 2015-132, 827 South Bonner Street will not be heard today. Next are the cases which are on our consent agenda. And the consent agenda consists of cases where the zoning board staff has reviewed the files and we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve these appeals based upon the record contained in the files. I will call the consent cases as a group. If you can try to stay in the order in which they're called. The first person will line up here and everyone else will line up behind them down the dais. Once everyone is up here, we'll get you all sworn in at that time. And as each case is called individually, you'll be given the opportunity then to offer any further information that you would like to have added to the record. 2015-95, 3501 through 11 O'Donnell Street, Nate Prettle. 2015-97, 517 South Glover Street, William Christ. 2015-121, 1200 Greenmount Avenue, Verizon Wireless, care of Hillary Morrison. 2015-129, 3320 through 22 Eastern Avenue, James Park. 2015-136, 6437 Harford Road, Nathaniel Green. 2015-138, 5430 Park Heights Avenue, Verizon Wireless, care of Joe Galindo. 2015-139, 1210 Cooksey Street, Michael Coster. 2015-140, 3243 Elliott Street, Clemmer Group LLC, care of Robert Clemmer. 2015-142, 5501 through 07 Harford Road, Verizon Wireless, care of Joe Galindo. 2015-147, 612 Hyson Street, Charles Scarlatta. All right. If you'll all raise your hands and be sworn, please.
You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay, first case, 2015-95, 3501 through 11 O'Donnell Street, Nate Prettle, or Al Berry. Afternoon, Mr. Berry. We have this as an application to raise the existing structure, subdivide lot, and construct 8 four-story single-family attached dwellings in the premises. Is that correct? All right. And Mr. French, anything for the planning department? I hope that wasn't.
That was staff material. Thank you. Martin French for the Baltimore City Planning Department. Planning Department reviewed this application. The department recommends approval of the application, subject to review by the Site Plan Review Committee for the final site plan of this property, and subject to approval of the proposed subdivision of the property by the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and Mr. Berry, does your client agree to the conditions offered by the planning department?
Yes, we did have a preliminary site plan review approval already, and the board may remember this has been postponed for various alterations and discussions and meetings with the neighbors. And so we're glad to do it today.
Good.
Developers will do their effort. All right, so we've been before. And any questions?
We did get a letter from the community outlining your meeting and their agreement.
All right. So that's already in the record?
Yes.
Okay. Anything further to have to supplement the record at this time? All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thanks. Good luck. Next. David, did we have someone else sign in on the sign-in sheet?
Yeah, they're in support of the car wash.
Okay, thanks. 2015-97, 517 South Glover Street, William Christ. Okay, afternoon, gentlemen. we have this as an application, you can step forward to the microphone. We have this as an application to construct a two-story rear addition with second floor rear deck to access a rooftop deck. Is that correct? Okay. Your name again, sir? Thanks. And Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And gentlemen, anything further you'd like to have added to the record this time?
Just trying to run a tiny house, 700 square feet.
Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we've determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you. Go. Next, 2015-121, 1200 Greenmount Avenue, Verizon Wireless, care of Hillary Morrison. Afternoon, Ms. Morrison. We have this as an application to install a telecommunications facility consisting of 15 antennas with generator and equipment onto a rooftop. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And Mr. French from the planning department.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application and recommends approval of the appeal, subject to these conditions. The antennas and related equipment, where visible from, across, or along Greenmount Avenue, Preston Street, or Brentwood Avenue, must be painted to match the building so that they are visually unobtrusive. The antennas and related equipment will remain mounted as illustrated in the plans and elevations submitted to planning, and the applicant will adequately mitigate any adverse effect as specified in the report of the Historical and Architectural Preservation Division of the Department of Planning in accordance with that report's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Morrison, are those conditions acceptable to Verizon?
Yes, sir.
All right. And is there anything further you'd like to have added to the record this time? Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we determined there is sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thanks. Are you also here on Mr. Galindo's cases, or is he? Okay, we'll get to you in a moment. Next up, 2015-129, 3320 through 22 Eastern Avenue, James Park. Afternoon, Mr. Park. We have this as an application to use the first floor as a restaurant and carry-out food shop. Is that correct? All right. Mr. French from the planning department.
Department of Planning recommends approval of this appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Park, is there anything further you would like to have added to the record this time? Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we determined there is sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thanks. Good luck. Next, 2015-136, 6437 Harford Road, Nathaniel Green. Afternoon, Mr. Green. We have this an application to construct a one-story auto repair garage, side addition, and reopen gasoline service station with convenience area. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I also requested accessory auto repair just to meet the state requirements for it.
Okay. Do we have that in the file? Do you know if that was on the post? On the sign?
I don't know if it was on the post, but I did send correspondence to the West Field Association, Michael Elliott and Arndell, as well as Anthony,
Okay.
because they were involved in the decision to open the gas station.
I recall the councilman's involved.
It is on the application that was submitted to us from the zoning administrator's office.
Okay. All right.
Uses auto repair garage with accessory auto sales in conjunction with approved gasoline service station.
Okay. And Mr. French for the planning department.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed the application and recommends approval of the appeal, subject to these conditions. The applicant will develop and implement a site plan approved by the Department of Planning that provides for closure of unneeded curb cuts, if any, and for landscaping of the property edges along Harvard Road and Pinewood Avenue. There will be no parking, staging, or storing of vehicles on public rights-of-way. There will be no parking or storage of unlicensed vehicles on the property. All work must be performed indoors. All materials, parts, and equipment related to the use will be stored indoors. The area used for temporary storing of vehicles will be adequately screened by an opaque fence or wall, and if a dumpster is used to collect waste and trash related to this use, the dumpster will be placed either inside the existing building or within a masonry enclosure having a solid, lockable wooden gate. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Green, are those conditions acceptable to your client?
Yes,
Okay. Anything further you'd like to have added to the record this time? All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we determined there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, 2015-138, 5430 Park Heights Avenue, Verizon Wireless, care of Joe Galindo.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir. We have this as application to install a telecommunications facility consisting of 2 antennas with equipment onto the rooftop. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. You can lift that microphone up if you need to. Mr. Friends for the planning department.
Thank you. The Department of Planning recommends approval of this appeal, subject to these conditions. The antennas and related equipment, where visible from across or along Park Heights Avenue or Denmore Avenue, must be painted to match the building to ensure they are visually unobtrusive. The antennas and related equipment will remain mounted as illustrated in the plans and elevations submitted to planning, and the applicant will adequately mitigate any adverse effect as specified in the report of the Historical and Architectural Preservation Division of the Department of Planning in accordance with that report's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Galindo, are those conditions acceptable to Verizon?
Yes.
Okay. And is there anything further you'd like to have added to the record this time?
No.
Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, determined there is sufficient information to approve your appeal. We can get to your other case. 2015-142, 5501 through 07 Harford Road, Verizon Wireless, care of Joe Galindo. Mr. Galindo, we have this as an application to install a telecommunications facility consisting of 1 antenna with equipment onto the rooftop. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And Mr. Friends for the planning department?
Thank you. The Department of Planning recommends approval of this appeal, subject to these conditions. The antenna and related equipment must be painted to match the building to ensure they are visually unobtrusive. The antenna and related equipment will remain mounted as illustrated in the plans and elevations submitted to planning, and the applicant will adequately mitigate any adverse effect as specified in the report of the Historical and Architectural Preservation Division of the Department of Planning in accordance with that report's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Galindo, are those conditions acceptable to Verizon?
Yes, they are.
And is there anything further you would like to have added to the record this time?
No.
Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we determined there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. Next, 2015-139, 1210 Quincy Street, Michael Costa.
Yes, good morning.
Afternoon, Mr.
Good
Costa.
afternoon.
We have this as an application to construct a 2-story rear addition with 2nd floor rear deck and a rooftop deck. Is that correct?
Correct.
And Mr. French, anything from the planning department?
Planning Department has no comment on this application.
Thank you. And Mr. Costa, anything further you'd like to have added to the record at this time?
No, sir.
Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we determined there's sufficient information to approve your appeal.
All right. Thank you.
Good luck. 15-140, 3243 Elliott Street, Clemmer Group LLC, care of Robert Clemmer.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Mr. Predel. We have this as an application to use the first floor as a professional office for ultrasound keepsake services. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Can you get a description on what exactly ultrasound
Sure.
keepsake services are?
I'm here with John Selmer, who is the property owner and operator. I'll let him give a brief description.
Yeah, it's basically just ultrasound technology, sound waves capture, allow keepsakes, so like monitors, little modules with like heartbeats for babies, for expecting mothers, DVDs, videos, things like that, so they can have as a keepsake.
I think the distinction, it's not a medical service whatsoever.
It's not, yeah.
Okay. Mr. French, anything from the planning department?
Planning Department has no objection to this application. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Predel, anything further to add?
Sure, I would just add that I submitted a packet along with a number of letters of support, including the Canton Community Association, so you should have that in your file.
We do.
Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Thanks, take care. Next, 2015-147, 612 Hyacinth Street, Charles Scarlotta.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir. We have this as application to construct a 2-story rear addition with a rooftop deck accessed from a stair penthouse. Is that correct?
Correct.
Mr. French, anything from the planning department?
Planning Department has no comment on this application.
Thank you. And Mr. Scarlotta, anything further you would like to have added to the record this time?
Yes, this is just basically a redesign of the existing floor plan. It already has a rooftop deck and a doghouse. I just want to relocate those to facilitate a different stairwell design, as well as add an addition on the back to facilitate closet space for both the front and rear bedrooms that have none at the moment.
Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, take care. All right. Next, we're going to address the remainder of our docket, which include cases where opposition is signed in. And frequently we found that opposition is the result of either a lack of communication or miscommunication between the parties. Frequently it can be useful to offer the parties an opportunity to have a dialogue, ask whatever questions they'd like to ask, exchange information, and get a better sense of one another's positions, and hopefully arrive at a resolution of their differences between themselves. Obviously, if two sides approach the board on opposing sides of an issue and ask the board to resolve it, one of those two parties is bound to go away from that encounter disappointed. And this is your opportunity to avoid that unhappy fate. I'm going to read off the cases where opposition is signed in, or actually the case where opposition is signed in, and offer the parties an opportunity to have a dialogue. You certainly don't have to accept it if you don't want to speak, though we certainly do encourage and appreciate it. The one case where we have opposition, which is signed in, is 2015-80, which is 830 Holland Street, Lakshmana Manoharan. And who is signed in on that case? Okay. And have you folks, I'm not calling the case, you can just stand where you are. Have you folks had an opportunity to speak? I'm sorry?
No, sir.
No, you haven't? Would you like to have an opportunity to speak? No? Okay. Well, have a seat. We'll get to you when we get to you. First case we have on the docket, 2014-504, 3010 Washington Boulevard, Baltimore Playhouse, care of Linda Dominguez. Afternoon, Councilman.
Good afternoon, how are you?
Good, thank you. All right, you're Ms. Dominguez?
Yes, I am, sir.
Okay, and Ms. Dominguez, we have this as an application to use a portion of the premises for a non-profit private club within an industrial mixed-use building. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay. If all those intending to give testimony can raise their hands and be sworn, please.
You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, do we have staff reports?
We have, this case was originally on the docket on December 2nd of 2014. At that time, we have a letter from Councilman Reisinger indicating that I do not support this business due to parking requirements. The capacity of this building is 1,200 people. This will require 300 spaces, however, they only have 20 spaces. Even though this property is located in industrial M2 district, this property is only 2 blocks away from the residential area. Parking problems already exist in that area. Increasing parking on side streets would certainly further increase the parking problem. And planning has a recommendation also.
Planning Department reviewed the original application, which at that time did not include a floor plan for the proposed club. Noted, as you heard in the previous testimony read into the record, that this particular property has a very large capacity, 1,270 persons was the information available to us, for which 318 off-street parking spaces would be required. There is parking on site, but there is not an indication of what portion of that parking on site would be made available exclusively for this club if the club was to be authorized. The department therefore recommended a deferral of complete hearing to allow the applicant time to prepare a floor plan showing the portion of the existing structure to be used, the entrances and exits to and from the building in relation to available on-site parking, and a parking lot plan showing provision of sufficient parking to serve the members, patrons, and visitors of the club, or documenting the amount of variance of parking requirements that would be required in order to support the proposed use. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Dominguez, why don't you first tell us about what you are intending to do with the premises, or what the nature of this business is?
It's a 501c, it's a tax-exempt nonprofit organization that is a private social club. I am legal counsel, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. They've gotten additional parking by an addendum to the lease, which I believe is part of the package that was just recently submitted on the 14th. There was a lease addendum that I gave to Mr. Tanner as well as to the Department of Planning,
Okay.
indicating that there was an additional 31 parking spaces at a lot that's, if the building is here, the lot is like here.
Okay. Do you know sort of the approximate location of where the lot is?
It's kind of like behind and above the building. It's
Physically above, or?
physically above.
Okay,
It's on the same property.
But it's on the same property, sir.
okay.
Elevated, there's like a terrace level. And, but however, we did get a copy of this addendum to the commercial lease, but we did not get any site plan that shows the parking or how it works or where it is on site. So we don't have much to go on.
Okay.
Yeah, I've also submitted the floor plan to the fire marshals to possibly lower the occupancy rate, because there was never any conception of having 1,270 people there. I think at most, on a normal situation, at most there's about 40 to 50 people that is at any one particular class or event, and everything happens either after 6 p.m. or on the weekends. So it's pretty much after business hours. And I think there was one event where there was about 200 people, but that was unusual. That's not the normal events that occur there. And normally people are not that, it's not that massive amount of people. So that's why when we got the occupancy permit saying that it was rated for 1,200 people, we were like, how?
Okay.
So I know that the fire marshal has probably not had time to reconsider the occupancy permit amount because of certain events that occurred a couple weeks back.
They're a little bit busy.
Yeah, so,
We received the floor plan, like you said, but there's no dimensions.
there's,
a list of references and schedules and suggested floor areas for those spaces, but there's no total. I mean, from what I have, I couldn't make much sense out of it. And the fire department has not given us a rated capacity to go with that floor plan.
So that, as I see as a kind of a significant problem, is if they haven't been able to come up they haven't been able to revisit the issue of the capacity. That's going to drive the parking, which is a significant aspect of your case, as well as, I'm going to imagine, your opposition. And I think also it's an issue that planning is interested in. So in that respect, it may be premature to proceed without that, because I'm not sure exactly how we determine the parking aspect without that information.
Now, when you talk about a parking plan, sir, are you talking about an actual, something similar to the floor plan?
Yeah.
We should have a site plan that shows the parking.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be an architecturally drawn, but it should be drawn to scale so that we get an idea of how the vehicles access the site and the number.
Okay. Yes, sir.
No, one question I had was that the information that we've got says that it's reflected, I guess, somewhere in the application that membership is limited to 100 persons. And you said that you were talking about the size of the events would typically be between, I think you said 40 to 50 people. But yet
Right.
you talked about one event that you had where there was 200 people who were there. And the question I'd have is that if it's a nonprofit private club, you should know how many members you have, and that's going to also drive the number of people who could be at any one particular event. I mean, if you've only got 100 people, well, then there's only 100 people who can show up. Maybe they can have guests. I don't really know what the rules are. You have to give a little bit more information on that. But so how does the membership aspect work?
Basically, people apply for membership and are vetted and either accepted for membership or not. And you have to be on a list. If you're attending any specific event, you have to RSVP and be on the list that you are going to be there for that event. If you want to bring a guest, that's possible. The guest may come for one event if they've been vetted beforehand, before themselves applying for membership. And we do not have a limitation to 100 members. I'm not exactly sure how that came to be. That's a misconception.
Okay. So there's no limitation on membership?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
I mean, there's no limitation on the number of members.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
there is a limitation on membership.
Okay. That's correct, on the number of members, that is. All right. And David, do we know where the limit of 100 members came from?
Well, I think on the application that was filed originally, it said the maximum expected attendance is 100 individuals.
No.
It didn't say anything about membership.
Okay, all right. Okay.
They also submitted an internal revenue letter indicating that they are indeed nonprofit, and along with that, a copy of their bylaws. And under membership, it just says contributors who pay an annual fee for use of the premises of the Baltimore Playhouse shall have all the rights and privileges of a member of the club. The Baltimore Playhouse shall have no regular members other than those who are on the board of directors. Any private persons who become members of the committee created by the board of directors to assist in activities shall have no voting rights regarding board actions. That's what their bylaws say about membership.
Okay. I'm a little bit confused because it kind of, if I heard that correctly, it said that there are no regular members.
Well, there's a difference between, I guess it's a difference in verbiage, you know, there's no members in this, in a certain sense, they're considered contributors.
Okay.
Instead of members, in the sense that it's a legal thing where you cannot necessarily get a list of contributors published, but you can get a published list, you can demand a published list of members.
Okay.
And because it's a private club, members prefer not to be all over the newspapers or whatever.
Okay. So the contributors, I guess, to use the term that you use, those are the ones who would pay the fee and then who are evaluated for, I guess, contributorship. And then there's some kind of criteria to evaluate who will and won't be accepted that goes beyond simply, did you pay the fee?
Correct. In fact, there's a list of persons that are considered persona non grata.
Okay. All right. And the reason for these questions comes from just simply the code, which lays out the requirements for clubs and lodges, and it says this, that they have to have, the organization has to have limited membership elected pursuant to its charter or bylaws. So that's where sort of the questions and concerns regarding how do people become contributors or members, what have you. Excludes the general public from its premises or place of meeting. And again, that gets back to the membership or contributorship issue. Is organized with officers and directors, and I think you did talk about a board.
Yes.
And then it holds all property for the common benefit of its members. Club or lodge does not include an establishment that permits non-members to pay a temporary membership fee at the door in order to enter and use the premises. So.
Yeah, there's no temporary membership fee.
Okay. All right.
So when there's an event, it's not open to the general public?
No, it is not. If you're not on the list that's been vetted for people who have RSVP'd, you don't get in. And not even if you're President Barack Obama, do you get in because you're not a member. Not sure how that would work, if that would actually happen, but
Probably should move on. All right. Councilman, I'm sorry, Ms. Dominguez, do you have anything further?
no, sir, sorry.
Council.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I first came upon this when the community notified me, and I had Mr. Jeff Beal and I both went down to the warehouse, the club, and the gentleman that was there, I think he said he was the president, what's his name, has blonde hair?
Robert Johnson.
Robert Johnson, yes. So Mr. Beal and I went in there and talked to Mr. Johnson. And my concern, because I live like 3 blocks from here, I mean, I could throw a football from my side street to the back.
I think it's been told to me that you live close enough to where you could hit the premises with your 9-iron.
Yes. I don't play ball.
I guess
But-
whoever said that does.
But, Mr. Chair and members, Mr. Beal and I went down and talked to Mr. Johnson, and my concern at the time was with the club was not just parking, but alcohol. You know, I was concerned concerned they were gonna hire a DJ, you know what I mean? They could park in the neighborhood. Mr. Johnson, he assured me, who's responsible, said that, at that time, he said that it was only 100 members in the club, and that you had to go to the board to be evaluated and to join. He also, they have like 25 or 30 parking spaces there. He said no alcohol, no drugs, no one can come in there and take pictures or anything like that. So he even said to me, when I was talking to him about the parking, that there's members that could take a bus to come there, so that would help out with the parking. So Mr. Veal left, and then what happened was it was on a Saturday, I had the day, I think it was in March, my neighbor across the street from me called me, and then she knocked on my door and said, you ought to see all these cars on the street. So I have the list here, but so I went up, and Elamont Street, Herkimer's like a T, the top, and then it's Elamont where I live at. All Herkimer Street was filled, no parking on either side, because it's the side of the houses. On the other side is Ace Uniform Company, so there was no parking on that side and on the other side, the north or the south side. On my street, I'm telling you, there was no parking on Elamont Street. So I got in my car, I drove up to the 1600 block of Elamont where I live at. I drove down the 1600 block of Parkman Avenue. There was barely any parking spaces. The 1700 and 1800 block of Parkman Avenue, which is directly around the corner going north from the club, both sides, their cars were parked on both sides. Ace Uniform lot, okay, their parking lot was occupied. Also, another 3000 Washington Boulevard, which is the Motor Truck Association, they have a parking lot that holds about 12 cars. That was full. Across the street from where the club is going south, Gable Avenue, they had cars parked from Washington Boulevard and Gable all the way down to the end. Also, the 1700 block and the 1800 block of Inverness Avenue was the same way, which is Elamont, Parkman, and Inverness. And then the 3000 block of James Street, which is a side street off of Parkman Avenue, the towing company, it's Audubon Towing Company, they were open, and the cars were parked wherever they could park there. I also have a petition here from the people. I just went to Elamont Street in Parkman, where it's residential, Mr. Chair and members, but there was, I'm telling you, I drove around because, like I say, I live close by, and I counted about 263 cars in the industrial site on these streets, and I'll hand this to you if you make odds and ends of it, but I counted about 263 cars, and that's not counting Elamont or Parkman Avenue, because I couldn't tell. I know some of the people, my neighbors, I knew the cars, but there was cars there that I didn't know who they belonged to. And some of the cars also had license plates from Washington and Virginia. And what confuses me, what I'm concerned, is they say it's a private social club. Let me back up. I even asked Mr. Johnson, I says, will you be renting this warehouse out to anyone? And he says, no, it's for club members only. So that Saturday, I drove into the parking lot, and there was a woman there. I said, I want to talk to the manager. And the woman came out to find out she was renting that building, okay? And I have here, I'll present to you, it's on the website that they sent out, when they're having events. So they had that event that March, and when I pulled up, they had an event that March. So when I pulled up, I asked for the president, Mr. Johnson, and this woman came out who said, I'm not a manager. She said, but she was renting the warehouse. And her concern was are they going to get tickets? The people that paid to get in there for the educational class or whatever they called it, you know, I said, look, I'm not going to do that. I'm not calling the police or anything like that. You know what I mean? So I told Mr. Johnson, he was kind of irate and arrogant about it. I told him, I says, you lied to me. You're pushing the envelope. You said you weren't going to rent it, and I have all these cars parked in the neighborhood. I think the code is if they have 100, that's 25 parking spaces. Okay. If there's 200 and some cars parked in that industrial park area and they were closed, you know, that's you're looking at close to 800 people. I don't know where she got 200 people, you know, at that site. I sat on my back deck and I could see the 1700 block of Parkman Avenue. And the people that parked there in the afternoon, I mean, it wasn't until like 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening that people were coming out, getting the cars and leaving. And my concern is, I did talk to the fire marshal, the captain, at one of my hearings. He was there to testify on something else. And I asked him, and he said that they went and checked it out, and he said the capacity was 1,000. So, I mean, it's my hearsay what I'm telling you what the captain said. So even at 1,000, you know what I mean, they need 250 parking spaces. And it concerns me that if they're renting it out, and I have here where on the website they stated that March the 21st from 11 a.m. till 2 a.m. From 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. that they were having a shop with over 50 vendors. And I'm not going to read the rest of it, I'll show it to you. They even stayed here Friday, May the 20th, the day before. They were closing for the vendors to go in there and set up. So this, if it's a private club, there's a trust with me now that.
I can't see
Yeah.
it, so, sorry.
So my concern, Mr. Chair, members of the board, is that, you know, I don't think anyone knows. Let's say it's 100 members trying to find out how do you become a member, and with this had to be like 800 people there for that event. You know, they had someone on Washington Boulevard flagging people downtown where they could park, and it's really a negative for my community. Like I say, I live like 2.5, 3 blocks away, that them coming in and renting it out. And Mr. Johnson told me that they weren't going to rent the warehouse out. So there's a concern right there with that. So the neighbors, some of my neighbors, the ones that signed a petition, had to work. Some of them are elderly, disabled, they couldn't come. So, you know, that's why it's only I.
All right. Which brings us back to the rating capacity issue of the fire marshal. And my concern was that with the absence of anything from the fire department as far as what the capacity is, and then also the lack of specificity within the floor plan that we have. We can't really tell dimensions and the like to really have an idea as to usable space or anything like that. And I'm still a little bit shaky on as to where the parking lot is, although I do understand that it's. Would you like this in the record, by the way, Councilman?
Yes.
Although I do understand that it is on the same premises, I'm not sure exactly where. It looks like this is kind of a large industrial complex. But all of those are sort of unknown variables at this point. The most important one, of course, being what we have or what the fire department is going to say or the fire marshal is going to say as far as revisiting the issue on capacity. I hear you as far as your concern that estimate or determination was incorrect, but you bear the burden of proof as to that aspect, and if they still haven't figured out their process, they haven't figured out what their consideration is, then we don't really have anything to go on. And that's why, I just think that it's premature right now, without that information, but also without the information as to some more specific dimensions and the parking plan, to really know how to make a decision in this case.
Yes, sir.
I know you said that the fire department's a little bit backed up right now. Did they give you any kind of indication as to how long they thought it would be?
Said, from what I heard from Fire Inspector Jones, Jones? I believe that's his name. He said he might be able to get back to me within like 3 weeks or so. So, I mean, they're kind of busy, you know, and which I fully understand, you know.
Okay. Ordinarily, what we tell folks is that the choice is theirs as to whether or not they'd like to proceed or to continue. So.
I
choice is
would
yours.
prefer a postponement, sir.
Okay, all right. All right, in that case, 2014-504 will be postponed. If you can coordinate with the councilman once you get that information, if you can provide that to the councilman's office, that's not just the information for the fire department, but also any drawings as far as the parking plan and the floor plan, so that way, when we come back, everyone's got the same information, and plus, I'm going to imagine the councilman want to disseminate that information.
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. Chair, members of the board. In the meantime, because this is the second time it's being postponed, and they have to come up with a plan, and like I said earlier, you know, they already have the number. You know what I mean? So if you call, I'll get it for you. I can get the number. He said 1,000. But my real concern now is with it being postponed, what happens to now until the next hearing? Because, you know, I and my neighbors don't want to see 800 people coming into it, or if they rent that warehouse again, you know what I mean, for whatever, that I'm going to wind up with 200 and some cars parked in my neighborhood. Is there any kind of restrictions, or that the board can, like they, you know, I mean, if they're going to have like 150 or 100 members at the club, you know, I don't have a problem with that. We don't have a problem with that because they have enough parking. But if they, for a private club, if they're going to rent the warehouse again, then that's why I have an issue, and my neighbors have an issue. So I'm pleading to the board. Is there anything that can be done about that?
Okay.
Okay. This is a member of the board, Jennifer Johnson,
Okay.
and she would like to speak to the rental issue.
Yeah, we have no rentals coming up at all.
Yes, sure.
And if you've noticed, there haven't been any parking issues since that day in March.
Right.
And there won't be, because we don't have any more rentals. That was a one-time only thing. It's normally held in DC.
Okay. What I was going to say is, well, first of all, there was a question as to whether or not you were sworn in.
Yes, I was, sorry.
All right. And it occurs to me that, if I'm hearing you correctly, Councilman, that there's no objection to events of a certain size, but his concern goes to any promoted sort of third-party events and any events beyond, I think you said 150?
What, the club, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah,
As far as the interim period.
They said 100. If I may, it has been. I agree with it since that last episode. They've been open on Friday or Saturdays, and they've had cars there. I even see an overflow maybe on Parkman, but it might be like 20 cars, which I and my neighbors don't have a problem with 20 or 30 cars. It's when they have 800 or 1,000 people in the warehouse. That's when we have a concern.
Okay. And so could we have an agreement as to that during this interim period?
To, what, less than 200?
Councilman?
Well, I mean,
What would be
with the code, I mean, it's like, if they have 100, you say 100 members, then that's only, 25 parking spaces. So, you know, if it's 150, you're talking 30-some parking spaces.
At this
Yeah.
point, we have a lease that includes 61 parking
That's,
spaces.
that's as I understand.
Well, I haven't seen, not to be rude, I haven't seen the lease. It's, you know, what I mean, you're saying you have
Mr.
it.
Tanner, do you have that?
We have
before?
a copy,
Do you have a copy?
and it identifies 31 additional spaces.
So that's like 5160.
But I don't have any site plans. to
Okay.
confirm.
Okay.
If
All right.
there's 60, you're talking about what? 200.
Four, that would be
Yeah,
240.
40, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't think I don't think my community is gonna get upset if they have that amount of parking spaces. It's when,
It
again, when
spills
they,
off.
for the third time, they rent it and then they encroach into
Gotcha.
the community.
Okay, so we can have an agreement that you'll, during this interim period, events no larger than, let's say, 200 members?
That's fine.
Sure.
Is that acceptable, council?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. And also, if you would encourage your members to use the parking lot as opposed to parking in the street.
And
They do.
they've been told not to park anywhere near the residential as well.
Okay, all right. All right. I think with that, we can be adjourned. All
Okay.
right, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All of you.
Mr. Chair, members, Dave, thank you.
Take care, council. Okay. Next case, 2015-80, 830 Holland Street, Lakshmana Manoharan.
Yes. How are you?
All right, sir, and you're Mr. Manoharan?
Yes, sir.
And we have this as an application to use the premises to house 4 dwelling units, to house 4 dwelling units, is that correct?
Yes, from 2 to 4.
Okay, and if all those intending to give testimony can raise their hands and be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, do we have staff reports?
Yes, we have a letter from the Holland Grand House community. They write that they understand that the property now has 2 dwelling units and is grandfathered in for 2 parking spaces for those 2 dwelling units. They have no objection to the property being increased to 4 dwelling units, but only under the condition that 2 additional parking spaces are to be granted for the property. Does planning have a report?
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that the property is currently authorized for use as 2 dwelling units. The request is for 4 dwelling units. The 2 parking spaces required could be provided in the rear yard using access from Booth Street, which is 15 feet wide in this block, and therefore the department has no objection to this appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Mr. Manharan,
Yes.
the community association conditioned their support on maintenance of 2 parking spaces. Are you able to provide that to meet their conditions?
Yes, in fact, some of these pictures you can see in the rear, there's more than 2 parking, and also in the front there is ample parking. And that has not been an issue at all because the units also mostly, only one person stays. One of my units is a maintenance guy, he never had a car. And another student, they never drove, they don't have a car. Usually one person, university kids are, they stay. Behind there's a University of Maryland Biotech building. There is no thorough street or there is no traffic. As you see behind my unit, there is 2 cars. Inside there is another, even 2 cars it can accommodate.
Okay, so there's about, this is the rear?
Yes, sir. That
Okay.
rear, and also I have, here also it is a door I can open. There is enough space there too.
Okay,
Yes.
and you can park how many cars across that?
Right
pad?
there behind only rear 4 cars we can park.
Okay. All right. Add these to the record?
Yes. In fact, Once again, I think I have provided this. This is the one right there. There is nothing known straight road. That is a building. That is our units.
Okay. All right. Unless you wanted us to incorporate that into the record as well.
I'm sorry.
Do you want us to incorporate that into the record as
Yes,
well?
sir,
or-
please.
Okay. The entire packet or just this?
That's fine. I have provided already copies, so, but if you want, you can take that copy as well.
Okay. Good. All right. If you can briefly summarize what you're intending to do here.
Variance for the parking mainly, because ever since the building was built, it was four different units. And somebody in the meantime, years ago, somebody converted into two dwelling units. So that is the main purpose. And so there's ample front of the building, there is parking always. And as I mentioned in the rear, there is enough parking, more than enough.
Okay.
And we have been paying the tax like any other buildings and, 4 units property tax ever since.
Was this the,
That was the original poster.
okay, good. All right. Anything further this time?
No, sir, that's pretty much it for the parking variance only mainly, and 2 to 4 dwelling units, yes, we are seeking.
Mention like the parking out front and the parking in the alley. This is the alley space. It doesn't count towards the required parking. But it appears that they do have enough to.
Yes, and if I understood you correctly, sir, you said that you could park 4 cars on that parking pad.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Turn to your opposition.
Well, my name is Larry Brown, and I was living in Holland's Market for 18 years. And it's always been my concern, nothing personal, just my concern. My neighborhood has always been a chopping block, more so for the investors and their need for economic reciprocity, if you will. I have a problem with people who don't live there. No disrespect to this gentleman, his rights, my rights either. When you don't live there, you're going to do what you want to do. And sometimes, and the city has had this problem where they have allowed this haven of chop blocking to go on. It's no big secret.
Well, if I understood the testimony correctly, the property as built was 4 units.
Yes, sir, I understand that as well.
So, I'm guessing the property was built sometime around the turn of last century?
Yes, 1840, 1850,
Even
mine is
latter-
1840.
even Longer ago than
Yep.
that. Okay,
Can I address it real quick?
just a moment.
Sure.
Was that all that you had to say?
Well,
or were you
I just know a little bit about this process, but my house was turned into 4 apartments at one time, and that's just a loft, 1.5 bathroom. They do these things, but no disrespect to this gentleman, but the city's not listening to us. And this, me, at this point, I can leave the city or not leave the city.
I think there's the letter that we had from the community association. They
Oh,
were
them.
saying that they were in support of it.
Well, they always had their isms and schisms too after 18 years. They want what they want. And as a person, as an individual, being who I am, that means nothing to me. I mean, I'm living here with 600,000 other people. When you don't hear me, then, that's where I feel. I've seen it where they flip the properties, they do it for gain, they run it down, they don't get their permits. If I were to do that, not this gentleman, you know the area. You know Holland's Market has been famous for that since the Lowenthal days. Well, how I know, that's why my property was the same way. But I bought mine outright, mortgaged it. Mhm.
I would like to say is that this property under R9.
That's fine. That's cool.
Which is high density.
Yes, sir.
It allows for a lot of dwelling units on a given lot
Mm-hmm.
by right. And when it reduced to, from 4 to 2 in the past, a lot of times that was done to avoid the multiple family dwelling license that's required for 3 or more. To go for more than 2 was
Right.
back into a requirement for annual inspection and licensing, which hopefully ensures that the property is kept up to date. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Anything further, Mr. Brown?
No, that's it. That's all I came for. No, that's all I came for.
Okay.
Can I have a minute, sir,
Yes,
to address?
please.
I
Yes,
do
sir.
admire that, really your concern. Really, when we bought that, after my son graduated from college, he stayed there, we lived there, he lived there for 5 years. And now he has a baby, so he has to move out. So if we were not big investors from somewhere and millions of dollars throwing here, we are senior citizens living in Maryland. I'm not out of state. All mine is, everything is in Maryland. I do really appreciate that. I am very much concerned about that, people coming here doing all that. I do care about the neighborhood wherever we are. So my son lived there, and still he is living in Baltimore, and he is a general contractor. Finally, he got the license, and he is doing the work, everything here.
Okay.
So we are local, we are doing everything here, and just to address the concern. Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Anything further?
Yes, sir, that'd be all.
Any questions? All right.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Have a good. Thank you, sir.
All right, next case, 2014-134, 3603 West Caton Avenue, Valjean Knight. This is postponed. All right. All right. Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr.
You
Knight.
are, sir?
And- Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Brad McPhee, and I'm here today representing Mr. Knight.
Okay, afternoon. You both can come a little bit closer to the microphone if you care to. All right, and we have this as a application to use a portion of the premises for an outdoor hand car wash accessory to a grocery store use. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, can those intending to give testimony raise their hands and be sworn?
You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, and Mr. McPhee, did you have a card, by the way?
I do.
Okay.
Glad to provide one.
Sure. Yeah. All right, you can just hand it to the reporter there. All right, and do we have staff reports?
Yes, first we have a letter from a resident. That wrote, I am the resident and owner of 72 North Monastery. My house is located directly across the street from the A1 convenience store and the car wash. I have seen the car wash on its busiest days and have no complaints. These guys have come and cleaned up the vacant lot that was full of trash in such a nice store. They also cleaned up the hill and keep the streets and surrounding the lot they love. They work to keep it clean. I have been around here for several years, and this is, in my opinion, the best business for the community in years. Please allow this business to continue. It's a great look for our community. We also have received a petition with at least a dozen names from residents in support. We also have planning support.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed the application, noted that the proposal is for an accessory hand car wash, and the last permitted use of the building is a grocery store. The department did not immediately see the connection between the hand car wash as
accessory to a grocery store. And noted there was also some community opposition indicated to the staff of the department. The department therefore recommends disapproval of the appeal based upon what was contained in the application, because the proposed hand car wash is not shown in the application to be actual accessory to the existing or future commercial use of this property.
Thank you.
And if I may, before, I noted a moment ago, I just heard that there were a dozen or so signatures that were in possession of the committee at this point in time. I could supplement that. I've got, actually, and I don't know if the committee has had access to these, but there's 165 signatures there. So while there may have been just a few initially, there are certainly several more that would seem to indicate fairly overwhelming support in the community for this project.
Okay, and Mr. McPhee, we noted that there were some witnesses who testified, who signed in support of this. Are you intending to offer them as witnesses?
Your Honor, there are several folks that are in attendance, and in addition to one young lady who had to leave, but who asked me to, and yeah, I would actually, would you want to come up, or just?
Sure, if you would like to. It's your case, so
Sure.
let's put it on.
Not yet.
While they're making their way up, if you could tell us about the operation and particularly, I think if I heard the planning department correctly, their concern was how the operation would, I guess how the car wash would operate as an accessory to the intended grocery store.
With regard to that specific question, Your Honor, I'm going to defer to Mr. Knight because he's actually had conversations with the owner of the A1 store, and he knows a little bit more about that than I do. So if you want to just
Okay. First, I want to say it's a pleasure to be in front of the board. The actual they have it listed as a grocery store, but it's more like a convenient mart. The convenient mart, like if you walk into a gas station, they mainly sell chips, sodas, drinks, things of that sort. You walk into the last aisle, they sell car mats, floor mats, car incense, accessories to tie shine, things of that nature as well. When you go into the store, they have a big old sign of the car wash next door, which is letting everyone know that the car's next door. The closest car wash, which is on Route 40, is so far away. A lot of the senior citizens and everyone, they love us. They love the fact that it's going to be a car wash in that area. When you go in there, our payments will be actually made inside of that area, because we're not going to have, people hand in hand and with money in the parking lot. So they will actually go in there to actually make the payment. So basically, the owners of the store, they love us. I don't see a big problem with a hand car wash. It's basically, I think it's a good idea, and we actually the lot is vacant. You heard someone write a letter. I don't know who wrote the letter, but they say we cleaned it up as well. It's a good look. It's a very good look.
And if I'm getting this correctly, the idea is that either people who are coming to patronize the convenience mart, as you called it, or even people who would be coming to maybe get their car washed, that they would use that as an opportunity to go into the store and make purchases.
Yes, sir.
And that's probably part of the idea as to why they go into the store to pay for the car wash.
Yes, sir.
I would stop short of saying it's a joint venture with Mr. Valjean and Mr. Asala, who owns the A1 Mart, but it bears some resemblance to a joint relationship. They do have, I don't know if it was in the original packet that everyone had a chance to see, but they do have a lease. So obviously there's a mutual benefit between the two entities. Additionally, there's been discussion about taking some additional steps to interact two businesses by way of use of various coupons, so on and so forth, all to be fleshed out later as business kind of progresses.
Okay, and that was just getting to in the code and under the definition of accessory. It's provided, this is in section 1102 of the code, it says accessory use or accessory structure means a use or structure respectively that one serves and customarily is incidental and subordinate to the principal use or structure 2 is subordinate in area, extent, or purpose to the principal use or structure. 3, contributes to the comfort, convenience, or necessity of occupants, business, or industry in the principal use or structure served. And last, number 4, except in a planned unit development, is located on the same lot as the principal use or structure served.
It sounds like this falls right into the definition under the code.
Yeah, that was my suspicion.
And also, can I add one thing?
Yes.
This is, you have a copy of it, but the orange houses that's the closest block affected. That's Montessori. That's the closest neighbors, residents, homeowners have been around there for a long time. They signed a petition. I just highlighted it so you could see. It's a better visual of exactly how many people who are in compliance with it.
Okay. And Mr. McPhee, if you wanted to offer any witnesses?
You know what, I would. Gentlemen, if you just want to, you're going to need to raise your right hand. Take a look real quickly. Everybody? Pay attention to that gentleman over there.
You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Quickly, is it fair to say, and I'll ask this of everybody.
I'm sorry.
If they can all just step up.
I'm
just
sorry.
So that they can.
Let me just kind of ask this simultaneously. Everybody that's represented here lives in the community, correct?
Yes.
How close to the A1 mark for each of you?
If we can.
3 blocks.
If we can first, if we can just have an identification of the witnesses, just for the record.
It's going to have to be one at a time.
Sure, no problem. For the record, your name is, sir?
Tyrone Dennis.
Okay, and what's your address?
I live around the corner on 316 Martingale.
Okay, very good.
Joseph Neal. My address is 604 Lyndhurst Street.
Just go ahead. Give the name to one person and then talk to the next person. Get there.
Is that?
Javon Mill, 309 Leonard Street.
Alicia Flowers, 309 Leonard Street.
All right, one at a time. We'll start closest. So you live in the area, correct?
Yes.
All right. You're aware of the plan for the car wash, correct?
Correct.
Do you have any concerns about the car wash?
No, I think it's a good thing.
Okay. And why would you say that? What about the car wash do you believe is a good thing or in any way benefits the community?
It's like you was speaking earlier, the gentleman was speaking earlier. The closest car wash is like Route 40, and most of the people in the neighborhood, they like older and stuff. They own homeowners. They don't want to go all the way up Route 40, but they can go right there and get a good car wash. That's how I feel about it.
Okay. Mr. Neal, same question. You're aware of the plan for the car wash?
Yes.
You know Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Okay. And you're from the community, correct?
Yes.
All right. In your own words, how do you feel that this additional business or this addition to the community would in any way would benefit the community?
Well, personally speaking, as far as the community, it actually has been helping the other businesses around it. But as far as like the younger kids, like he's also a football coach. My sons have played for him, and my sons have actually got hands-on experience as far as working, not for $1, but just a work ethic. He allows them to come down there. He shows them like step by step how to go, what to do. Like it's not a whole lot of after-school programs around that Prairie, and he actually takes the initiative to like show them a skill. And I think it's just like not just for the older people, but just like for the youth. For me, I work, and he's been a big help.
You just said a minute ago, there's not a lot of after-school programs or a lot of youth
No,
programs
it's not.
in the area. To take that a step further, would it be fair? Would you agree with me that it's actually a fairly high crime area in that?
Yes.
Okay. And do you see any benefit, and particularly the A1 store? Has there been issues there in the past that you're aware of?
Yes, there has
And
been.
could there be any possible benefit in your mind to having responsible adult males present on that property in terms of possibly deterring that type of activity?
Most definitely. I definitely agree with that.
Next.
He basically summed it up, but there's no more prostitution on the parking lot. The parking lot cleaned up now, it's occupied.
Your name again, sir?
Javon Mill.
And I believe it was Ms. Flowers.
Yes. Well, I agree, as well as we all said, my son here as well, he's actually a football player as well. As you can see, he got his city championship. You feel me? So my son, every day coming home from school, he looks forward to going up there, being around. This is their role models. It's a legit business. Everything is legit, you know, fine. I mean, like, we don't really see what the problem is. Like, we clean up, you know, I will help, come up there and volunteer, you know, we get back, you know, water, food, you know, we working as one.
Very good. Unless the board has any questions other than the ones that I raised. If you guys could just have a seat.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
I would also proffer some testimony. You may have noticed that there was a young lady here in the back with a flowered dress on. Her name is Carla Owens Moody. She's a MBA and apparently the executive director of the Sustained Solution Corporation. She gave me her card and she said she wanted me to proffer to the board. Her company, well, the slogan basically in her card says fostering growth in our youth to drive a new era of transformation and opportunity in our communities. It's a mouthful, but essentially what she does is it's a youth opportunity program, mentoring program, so on and so forth. She asked me to convey that her child also plays on the same ball team. As a matter of fact, she said his name was Caden. He's 9 years old and he plays for the Park Heights Pirates. Apparently, which is coached by Mr. Knight as well as some of his friends. And she also wanted to convey that she thought that this was a healthy idea for the neighborhood. I don't know if the board has, I'll just close unless the board has some other questions.
Any questions?
No.
You know, I was just going to say, you know, not to state the obvious, and obviously not to be too much of an opportunist in using recent events to kind of highlight what's good about this project. But the fact of the matter is that I can't think of anything. I certainly can't think of anything related to I guess, you know, a use issue or an accessory issue with regard to this store that would in any way, shape, or form overwhelm the benefits associated with young men trying to do something positive in their community. Obviously, they're trying to do something positive for themselves as well, which is make money legitimately, which is what we want young men in the community to do, as opposed to make money illegitimately, and mentor youth and help kids out, help the neighborhood. You know, these guys seem to be really committed to their cause. You know, they're a little bit like fish out of water here. You know, they're going through these formal processes. It's not something that they're accustomed to doing on any kind of regular basis. And to have, you know, put this appeal together and put this plan together and gone out and gotten all these signatures and done everything that they've done up to this point, I couldn't be more impressed. I hope the board is impressed as I am. And I wouldn't want to send the message to people like Mr. Knight. I think we should be doing everything we can to promote, frankly, people like Mr. Knight who want to, who want to contribute to their communities and earn money and be responsible tax-paying citizens. They're young entrepreneurs, and so hopefully the message is that, you know, we're going to support you in this, and I think the business is viable. The bottom line is, like any other business, time will tell. But it's a valiant effort on their part, so hopefully the board will come along.
It does seem to be a well-intentioned enterprise. Anything further?
I think not.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, 2015-135, 4923 Ricerstown Road. Calling again, case number 2015-135, 4923 Ricerstown Road. Okay. Uh, 2015-146, 5624 Bel Air Road, Hussein Marziga. What you said. Okay, Mr. Marzugian.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. We have this as a application to house 2 dwelling units and an office on the premises. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Can you raise your hand and be sworn, please?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right. And do we have staff reports? We have one report from planning.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this property is
Lot measuring 15 feet by 110 feet, and is also Zone B31. And for a B31 property, there is a requirement for 5,000 square feet of lot area per dwelling unit, which would produce a requirement for 10,000 square feet for 2 dwelling units. And this lot only encloses 1,650 square feet, so it is far below the amount of lot area required for an additional dwelling unit. The department therefore recommends disapproval of this appeal because the amount of lot area variance that would be needed for approval would exceed the discretionary authority provided to the board in the zoning code. Thank you.
Okay, Marzikian.
Yes.
Mr. Marzikian.
Yes.
First of all, were you aware of that position of the planning department? As far as the required square footage for 2 dwelling units on the premises being, our record shows the requirement is 7,500 square feet. Your premises have 1,650 square feet. So that's far below the required square footage for 2 dwelling units at the premises. And although the board does have an ability to reduce that requirement, our ability to reduce it is capped at only 25%. So that would still leave you far short of the required amount of square footage.
But the tenant is happy. I bought this property as an investment, and the time I bought it, they was the same as it is, and they was 2 apartment and basement, office in basement. And when I look at the, when I I bought it in the auction, and the time I bought it, one tenant, it was living there for a year and something, and they have all document, he pay on time. And when I bought it, I get another tenant for a 2nd floor, and both of them is happy, and they don't have any complaint. And me as a landlord, I don't have a complaint. And I bought, because of that, I bought this property because it was, we accounted this income to.
When did you buy the property?
I bought it, I think, in November.
This past November?
But yes.
Because our property history shows that there was a appeal last year concerning this property, which was withdrawn, seeking to house 2 dwelling units at the premises. I'm guessing that it was probably withdrawn once the owner realized that they would fall short of the requirement.
And they didn't say anything.
That's correct.
Yes, and
so you may have reason to speak with them, or dare I say, talk to possibly an attorney about speaking with them on that. But the position that we find ourselves in is that unlike there was another case, I don't know if you were here for that, where that property was in a different residential zone. I think that was an R9 zone, which is intended to have very dense zoning. Your property doesn't envision as dense zoning, and so therefore the requirements for dwelling units, for the required space for dwelling units is much larger. then you unfortunately have the ability to provide. And as I said, the board's authority or ability to grant the variance that you're requesting in this case really is constrained. And the board frankly doesn't have the power to grant it. And it looks like there was another case going back into the 70s where there was someone was looking to house 2 dwelling units on the premises, but that was conditionally approved, and I guess there must have been, there's some kind of intervening vacancy.
Well, that's the question that needs to be pursued with the zoning administrator's office. If you can show that it's always been 2 dwelling units since 1976, then the zoning administrator, if he agrees, could accept that. You don't even need to be here. But there's probably some, I mean, if it was vacant or abandoned for a period of time, that use could have been lost. But that has to be researched.
Do we don't have any property history or anything showing? Okay.
No, we just have, 76 and then all of it up to.
And I think the couple of house of my property is has 3 units.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have separate meters, gas, electric meters?
I believe so, yes. I can do that. If I agree, I work on that to put separate meter or get somebody to work on it to do that.
I would suggest that you request a meeting with the zoning administrator and explain to him your problem, and he could perhaps do some research to help you along. If there is information available to help, it may be the place to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Strikes me that it may be useful, and this is your decision to make, but it may be useful to postpone this case or to request a postponement of this case so that you can consult with the zoning administrator's office about the issues that Mr. Tanner has raised, and also try to get some more information as far as the occupancy history of the property. As Mr. Tanner said, that if the property has been constantly occupied all the time since going back to 1976, then there's no need to be here because the board approved occupancy with 2 dwelling units almost 40 years ago.
No more than 4 people.
Yes.
Is the condition that was placed on it at that time. We really can't do that in today's world because of Fair Housing Act, and they can't put an occupancy in there. But that's how it got approved
Okay.
in 76.
Okay. And so, would you like to request a postponement right now?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll provide you with Mr. Tanner's card, and you can, if you want to give him a call, he can point you in the right direction as to the people you need to talk to get the information that you're looking for.
Appreciate
All
it.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice.
All right, and 2015-146 is postponed. And calling the last case, 2015-149, 1917 East Pratt Street, Dan Winter. Afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
All right, Mr. Winter, we have this as an application to raise the existing 1-story, 2-car rear detached garage and construct a larger 2-story, 2-car rear detached garage with den, office, and full bath on the 2nd floor. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. If you can raise your hand and be sworn, please.
I swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right. Do we have staff reports?
Planning Department reviewed this application.
Noted that this is proposing a substantial increase in the size of the rear structure on this property. And in fact, it will become, I will say almost editorially, tantamount to a carriage house, based upon the plans that were provided with the application. On that basis, the department believes that this would constitute creation of a second principal structure on a residential lot, and therefore this would require approval by the Planning Commission. The department also noted, of course, that the scale of the proposed additional construction obviously would allow it to be used as an additional dwelling unit, and is concerned that there might need to be some restraint placed upon who actually uses that unit. The department therefore recommends approval of the appeal, if granted, be conditional upon the applicant receiving approval from the Planning Commission for multiple principal structures on a residential lot, subject to use of the second principal structure's office area and den only by a resident of the principal dwelling structure known as 1917 East Pratt Street, and subject to continuing use of the parking garage to provide off-street parking for 2 cars, which is its current amount. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Winter, as to the conditions offered by the planning department, would those be acceptable to you?
I think with some exceptions. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was 21 feet proposed, and the limit was 20 feet as a condition.
I'm talking about the height.
The height, yes, I'm sorry. And I think the community group, Fells Point, or Upper Fells Point Community Association, has approved this, and there was some concern as to whether or not it was being constructed as a additional unit. 1917 Bank Street is zoned 2 dwelling units. It's owner occupied, and there is a 1-bedroom apartment in the basement. This garage currently is very narrow to park in. Here's a photograph if you haven't seen that, if you need it. And the house is a very large 3-story corner unit with a very deep backyard. The whole purpose of this is to build a 2-car garage that can fit 2 cars in it. Currently, the 2-car garage is like 6-foot wide doors. They have a very teeny car that does slide in there.
And I think that there's not really an issue with the size of the garage. The question really comes down to what I thought of as a Fonzie apartment.
Agreed. Directly behind this is a large commercial building, reliable printing plates. So this carriage house sits in between 2 very large structures, and we want it proportionally to be to work scaled, not just in width but also proportion in the height. We did the second floor. Really, the purpose of it will be, although it's a little deceiving to call it an office, but it's like a home office or a den. It's separate from the main house, but I thought it was we're not putting a kitchen in there. We'd like to have a bathroom in there just so you don't have to run back and forth to the main house too.
Well, as I understand, it's a full bathroom.
Yeah, it's a full bath. I mean, and if I think they would do it for a powder room. We're just in a very preliminary stage in design right now. We want to make sure that it's an approved use. Our preference would be a full bath, but it's not necessary. Could be a powder room as well. But like if the family has guests over for a weekend or family, I mean, it's not like it's an apartment. If they can stay there as opposed to a pull-out sofa or something in the living room.
The application that we received says that the property's currently vacant and the proposed use is a single-family dwelling. So is it a single-family dwelling or is it 2 dwelling units?
I'm confused at what you're looking at there.
The application that you filled out with the zoning administrator's office. Gina Campbell filled it out.
She was the engineer that put the drawings together. I don't know if she knows what.
So the question that we had when our research is that the 2013 records indicate 2 dwelling units, but the application indicates it's a single family.
The application is incorrect then. It is a two dwelling unit property.
Okay, that's what
Okay,
I wanted
and-
to
Okay,
be clear.
And just to jump in, the two dwelling units are in the
The main-
row house.
Main structure, correct.
Okay, all right. And now, Mr. French, the planning department was concerned that there are two principal structures on, well, that there would be two principal structures created on one lot if the application is approved as presented, although I'm a little bit confused as to how there could be two dwelling units, I mean, two principal structures on one lot if there's not, you know, a kitchen and all that kind of stuff that you would need for actual living quarters. And I do understand that there, and as I said, you know, when I saw this, I thought of Fonzie, who didn't have a kitchen either, and he took his meals in the kitchen in the house. So that wouldn't create a real principal structure. I mean, it really seems to me is that it's, yeah, I think that there certainly is a dwelling unit or a possible dwelling unit on one property, but I'm not sure that it would be, you know, that it would certainly be the primary, or that it could be primary without those other facilities.
I think they wanted to call it a principal structure, but put a condition on it that it's accessory.
In which
And that's
case,
what
in which case, I would just say, why not just say that it's accessory?
We would view the proposed addition or replacement of the garage with the proposed building as creating a rooming unit.
Mhm.
And that, at that point, establishes a second principal structure on the vacant lot, which requires approval of the planning commission.
Can I ask a question?
But
Is that based on the scale, the size?
Yeah.
based on the definition of a rooming unit zoning code.
But then you have a condition that it can only be part of the dwelling unit.
Well, I was aware when this memo got put together that there was a conflict there, that it can't be both. You know, the board cannot impose a requirement that the person living in the rooming unit has to also live in 1917, which is the principal structure. The planning commission basically would have to take the position that the structure itself becomes a rooming unit, and therefore, without a kitchen, doesn't qualify as a dwelling unit, but with a full bath meets the requirement for a rooming unit. And the planning commission would need to approve two structures, multiple structures on a residential lot. There is no way to enforce, quite frankly, a requirement that whoever occupies that proposed second floor above the garage live at 1917, the principal building. So it's, quite frankly, easier, wiser to take the route that the planning commission should approve multiple structures.
If the planning commission did that, then the issue of the height goes away, because the height requirement of 20 feet is for accessory structures. So it may be, if the planning commission is willing to take that on and work through all the issues, it may be the way to go.
The second floor of the structure is 486 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
The hearing right before mine, he was trying for two dwelling units.
That was based on his lot area,
He was
not
in-
his
he was
floor
in-
area.
okay.
Yes.
He was in a different
So
zoning
you, in R8, you're gonna have a dwelling unit of 486 square feet?
The zoning code does not prescribe minimum floor areas for dwelling units.
The dwelling unit, the dwelling count is based on lot area, not floor area.
And just so that you know, rooming unit is defined in the code as a room or suite of rooms in a house or other building that is rented as living and sleeping quarters, but without cooking facilities. And a suite of rooms, each room provides, each room that provides sleeping accommodations is counted as one rooming unit for the purposes of this article. And I think that if I'm hearing the Planning Commission's concerns are that the den or office, really there's no way to determine whether that's really used as a den or whether it can be, it can easily be used as.
When I read that, I'm like, well, there should have used different terminology, but I don't think that would have changed anything, though, right? You know, I'd be happy to modify the name of it, because it's, I mean, just the term office doesn't, to me, mean it needs to be rented, or has to be rented.
It's really the floor plan that would be determining
Yes.
what is the potential use of that piece of property.
Okay.
And if I'm also hearing it correctly, that there's not really, per se, objection to what's being sought as a desire that you go through the, go to the Planning Commission to get approval to have 2 primary structures on 1 lot. And that process, Mr. French, would entail?
Basically, provision of engineered floor plans and engineered site plans showing the location of the buildings.
And then that material gets presented to the Planning Commission at whenever the next available hearing would be after we have that material in.
Could you explain to me what the threshold is if we didn't want to go that route to modify these drawings to satisfy as an accessory versus 2 structure?
It would appear to me, not being a
Building official and not being familiar with building code, fire and safety code, and so on, that the most important thing would be removal of the full bath, because that clearly sets up a living situation in that particular property, that part of the property.
Is that it?
That's all I can opine, based
So
on a
we-
simple observation of
if
the
we-
floor plan presented.
Could we revise it to a powder room, and would I have to come back in front of the zoning board, or can we do that here? So I'm like, oh, I don't know. Make a note on the drawing, on the application?
I would suggest if you wanted to do something like that,
From our point of view, it'd probably be wise to postpone this full hearing, present a new set of
floor plans, and then we would look at them, and the zoning board staff could look at them, and we'd decide.
It still would then require a variance to the height requirement.
Which we can revise that too.
I just wanted to
20
mention.
feet max, right?
20 feet.
Yes, and you're at 21.4.
I mean, you could probably work with that.
Seems like the most logical.
Okay.
Right.
All right, so you're going to postpone this?
Yes, in the process for that, do I post them on the sign?
No.
Call our office.
Yeah, if you just call our office.
Reschedule.
Let us know when you're ready to proceed. 2015-149, 1917 East Pratt Street is postponed. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, and that's the end of the 3 o'clock docket. We will take a 10-minute break and re-adjourn at 5:20. Pager, anything else that makes any kind of audible electronic sound, anything that plays a ringtone, chime, and the like, we ask that at a minimum you please turn that to a vibrate-only position if not off. And the reason for that is pretty simple and straightforward. You'll note that there are a number of microphones which are arrayed around us up here, and those microphones are all very sensitive. Microphones are not only for the purpose of amplification, but also for the purpose of recording these proceedings. And sounds from the gallery, conversations as well, interrupt the general conduct of the proceedings as well as the recording of the proceedings. In addition, those of you sitting forward of the wall behind you can see that there are 3 video cameras mounted on the wall behind you there, and there are 2 video cameras mounted on the wall here behind us. And those video cameras are for the purpose of recording these proceedings for broadcast in the city's cable access network. And again, sounds emanating from the gallery, cell phones going off, conversations and the like, disrupt not just the general conduct of the proceedings, but also that video recording process. So if you have a if you have a need to have a conversation, we ask that you please take that out the double doors to your rear, and if you have a cell phone or something like that, we ask that you please turn that to a vibrate-only position. We will be voting at the conclusion of this part of the docket, and you're certainly more than welcome to stick around and enjoy a civics lesson, and we don't really have that many cases on our 5 o'clock agenda. But if you've got something else to do with your early Tuesday evening, that's certainly understandable, and you can call into the zoning board office in the morning and find out how we ruled on your case. And the number for the zoning board office, I'll read this off a couple of times to allow you to get it down. The number for the zoning board office is 410-396-4301. Again, that's 410-396-4301. You will, however, need to wait until you receive the formal written outcome of your case. That should be forthcoming in about 3 to 4 weeks before you'll be able to get your permits. We certainly ask that you not build in the city of Baltimore without first obtaining proper permits. If you've not already done so, if you are here in opposition to any case, we ask that you please sign in on our sign-in sheet. The sign-in sheet allows us to not only know generally which cases have opposition, but also allows us to know who needs to receive those aforementioned written notices I just talked about. Additionally, if your case gets postponed, we need to know how to contact you to let you know when that case will be going forward. So please, if you are here in opposition to any case, just make sure that you signed in opposition. The procedure for the cases this evening will be as they always are, which is that when the case is called, the appellant will approach and will stand here to our left or your right. The opposition, if any, will stand to our right or your left. Everyone will then be sworn in. And once everyone is sworn in, we'll be first turning to the appellant to let the board know what it is that they are proposing to do, what the issues are that are involved, answer any questions that they may have, that the board may have, and to present any testimony or witnesses, documents that they would like the board to consider in support of their case. Once they're done, we'll then turn to the opposition, if any, who will be given that same opportunity. Once the opposition has finished with their presentation, we'll return back to the appellant, who will be given their opportunity to respond to any points brought up by their opposition and to offer a closing statement. We won't be going back and forth, unnecessarily delaying things into the evening. We will call the cases in order in which they appear on the docket, with one exception, and that applies to the one case which is on our consent agenda this evening, and that case is 2015-148, 44 White Avenue. Michael Proakis.
Yes.
Okay, if you'll approach, sir.
Yes, hi.
Okay. And if we first can get you sworn in?
Yes. I do swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Second.
All right, and Mr. Proakis, we have this as an application to construct a carport addition onto an existing one-story, two-car detached garage. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're on our consent agenda this evening, and our consent agenda consists of cases where the zoning board staff has already reviewed these files, and we have made the determination that there's already sufficient information contained in the record to approve these appeals. So briefly, Mr. French, is there anything from the planning department?
Planning department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Proakis, is there anything further you would like to add to supplement the record in your case?
Thank you. I just, this will be done very attractively to the neighborhood. This opportunity came from a garage that was infested by carpet ants. And the roof had to be come down and replaced in its entirety, and I've always wanted a carport. I just thought it was going to be one of those metal type, and it was just a matter of time. But this is a good opportunity to do that. And guess what insurance companies don't cover?
It's always important to read the fine print.
I thank you for your approval.
Sure. Anything further?
No.
Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you. Good luck.
Okay, thank you.
All right. The remainder of our cases, can you pass over the opposition sign sheet? The remainder of our cases will include cases for which opposition is signed in, and frequently we found that opposition is the result of either a lack of communication or miscommunication between the parties, and it can be useful to offer the parties an opportunity to have a discussion to see if they can resolve whatever their issues are amongst themselves. Obviously, if two opposing sides approach the board on a case and ask the board to resolve the issue, someone is bound to go away from that encounter dissatisfied with the result, and this is your opportunity to avoid that unhappy fate. The one case that we have where there is opposition which is signed in, and this is kind of awkward because it is a negative appeal, and that is 2015-151, 2301 Sinclair Lane. And who's the, I guess, property owner and who's representing the opposition in that case? Okay. And Councilwoman, I see that you signed in on the Sinclair Lane case. Has there been any discussion with the property owner about concerns that the opposition has? No, I'm just finding out what.
We met out in the lobby for.
They've got a solution.
This is Eric March, he's the main spokesman.
Okay.
Hi. This involves a permitted use whereby the community would like to have opportunity to have more input on the use of parking, a lot of school buses in the residential area. My understanding is that there's a process that was supposed to have been followed that not been followed according to, I guess, the requirements. And the community is looking to have an opportunity to discuss with the property owner his plans for the site and how we can come to some mutual agreement.
Okay. And has there been an agreement, or is there a desire to enter into further dialogue between the two sides?
Well, I guess that's for Mr. Alger.
Okay.
That's what we're here for, to be honest with you.
Okay. My question really at this point is whether or not you folks would like to continue discussing the matter, or if you would just simply proceed to a hearing.
Well, we would like that opportunity prior to this board issuing a permit for us.
Okay. If you want to have whatever discussions you're going to, I guess there's two ways you can go about it. If you think that you can resolve your, if you think that you can reach a resolution through a discussion today, I certainly would urge you to continue that dialogue. If you think that it's going to take a little bit longer than that, and there's a desire on both sides to continue the discussion, I think that you probably would be looking for a postponement, in which case we can also do that. So, yeah.
Well, the problem I have, everything's on hold right now. So, and I think it's been
Okay.
at least, what, 2 months?
Well,
I don't know
you
how
filed in March 17th. But for us, the problem is that the community, which isn't fully represented here today, would like to have opportunity to have a discussion with Mr. Alger and hopefully come to some mutual resolution.
Okay, if the parties in that case could, I guess, just step outside and continue your dialogue, and you can sort of see where you can get. We've got another case that's ahead of you, and we'll see where we can get, and then if there's a desire to keep talking and work something out, we can deal with it at that time, okay? Okay.
Okay.
All right. First case on our docket is 2015-141, 1815 Clifton Avenue. Kenneth Atefia. Afternoon. You can come up right there.
The landlord? This is the landlord. I'm the pastor of the church.
Okay. All right. And who's Mr. Okay, you're Mr. Atefia?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Atefia, we have this as application to use the first floor front as a church.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If all those intending to give testimony can raise their hands and be sworn, please.
You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. And do we have staff reports?
Yes, first we have a letter from the Fulton Heights Community Association. They write that the association would be opposed to the location of this church at 1815 Clifton Avenue. The building is in poor condition. And then we have planning's report.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed the application, noted the property is in an R7 zone in which a principal permitted use such as a religious institution requires 10,000 square feet of lot area. This lot only encloses 1,120 square feet since the property is 14 feet by 80 feet, and therefore the amount of lot area variance that would be required for approval of this appeal would exceed the board's discretion. Therefore, the department recommends disapproval of the appeal because the amount of lot area variance required for approval exceeds the discretionary authority provided to the board in the zoning code. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Atefia. I think that Mr. French cut to the chase as far as what the primary issue is with your appeal in this case, which is that the zone in which the structure is located requires a minimum lot area of 10,000 square feet for a church. There is only, well, the lot only contains 1,000 square feet, 1,120 square feet of available lot area, or of lot area, period. And while the board can issue a variance to alter that requirement, our authority or ability to do that is capped at 50% of the requirement. So of that 10,000 square feet, we can reduce that down to 5,000 square feet, but we can't reduce it any further. That would still leave you short. You only have, as I started off saying, just over 1,100 square feet. So what you're requesting exceeds the board's authority to grant. That being said, I think that there may be some alternative considerations that may allow you to achieve your purpose or what it is you're planning on here. And to that extent, it may be useful to postpone your hearing today and try to, I would recommend consulting with Mr. Tanner, the executive director of the board, to try to investigate some possible solutions that would allow you to achieve what you're looking to do here. Because I note that you're looking to operate as a church, but yet your congregation is small. You're only
Very
looking
small,
for
very
8 to 20
That was an error.
members.
We have 5 at most.
Okay,
Our worship
that makes it even possibly easier. Would you like to postpone your case in order to do that?
depends on the time frame because I have to attend missions conference very soon, and that would take me away for almost a month.
Mhm.
And I
When do
don't
you
know-
leave for your conference?
At the end of June, I should be out overseas.
Okay, and I think it would probably, be less time than that.
Okay.
I think the only question really would come down to whether or not you would have to post the property again, which if you did, that would be a requirement that it be posted for 3 weeks. And depending on when you got that up, you could possibly make our next meeting in, I guess, towards the end of June, which could possibly be, I'm not sure when your travel plans are, but which
Around
could,
the end of the month.
okay. So that may allow you to make your travel commitments.
Mr. Washington, I appreciate your input, but may I proffer some information on this particular case? When we were looking for a place, this is a brand-new church. When we were looking for a site, we stumbled on this gentleman's property. One of the first questions I asked him is this building zoned for a church? His response was yes. I said, okay, that's fine. Let me call the zoning board. We called the zoning office. They gave us the affirmative. Yes, you can go ahead. I know the lady's name, but I don't want to blur it out right here. On the strength of her response, we paid this gentleman the lease. Now, another thing happened when we were ready to file for the permit. A gentleman by the name Keith Blake or whatever, Reverend, he called himself the Reverend. He said, well, do you have a permit? We're in the process of applying for a permit. Then he sent the letter to you guys to block this appeal or whatever with the permit. I talked to the gentleman trying to resolve this issue. But he said, no, I'm a minister too. I'm not opposed to your church, but I'm opposed to your landlord. He has a compelling interest to block this permit. In all fairness, we leased this property inadvertently. We had no idea about square footage until we put in. So to be fair to the church, Mr. Washington, I appreciate your willingness to accommodate us. I do appreciate that. So there's a way we can work this out. To be fair to the church, we have burned so much money on this property. We have not been allowed to worship there for almost 2 months. But this gentleman needs his rent. If we violate that lease, he can take us to court. These are some of the considerations I'm throwing to the board. Please help me with this. Because we'd be glad if we were 20 people or 30 people. I say, oh, let's up, we can leave now. But we're 5, and that would pose undue hardship on the small membership. Then some of your staff asked me about the parking. Only 2 members of the church have cars. The church has a van whereby we can pick up our members on any Sunday. We're not encroaching on traffic. We're not bothering the neighbor. In fact, I brought this gentleman. They're members of the community. If they can introduce themselves, they told us don't leave. They want us there. Since we moved in there, Mr. Washington, crime rate has gone down. Prostitution went down. Drug trafficking went down. They can tell you.
Yes. Okay. And I think that on both of those issues, as far as your ability to operate the church from that location or operate or conduct your services and fulfill your mission, I think that those are achievable.
Thank you, sir.
With some alterations to how you've positioned your appeal. And I think that the issue also, as far as parking goes, I think that that's also resolvable. And so I think that were you to, I can't give you advice, but I think that if you did postpone your case and consult with Mr. Tanner, certainly he could point you to some possible alterations to your application that would allow you to move forward with and readily move forward with what it is you're looking to do.
Okay, one other thing I just want to add. This is in the church's deposition to the members. It states here, I borrowed from the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, a similar case here. 2014, Bay Foundation versus DCW Dodgeship, in which variance was granted for pre-existing square footage. Now, I also borrowed from RLUIPA, which I'm quite sure most of you know. Federal law which stipulates that there should be no law burdensome to a religious organization unless there is a compelling governmental interest and unless the proposed law is the least burdensome way of furthering that compelling. We did nothing wrong. Instead, we serve a purpose.
Okay, so the question for you right now is whether you want to postpone your case or whether you want to argue the merits of your
No,
case.
I'm not going to argue with you guys. Are mostly attorneys. I'm not an attorney, so I'm going to say respectfully, Mr. Washington, I'm willing to postpone, so we can work with Mr. Tanner to resolve this issue and leave the church there.
Okay, and I think that from the information that you've proffered as far as the operation of the church and what it is that you're looking to do, I think that that's certainly commendable and something that the board can, in general, support. The issue really just simply comes down to what the code allows and what it doesn't allow. But I think that there's probably a way to navigate the code in such a way that it would allow you to do what you're looking to do.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Let me give you Mr. Tanner's card.
Thank you, sir.
Actually, I have a couple of them.
Thank you.
And if you just want to give his office a call in the morning,
sure will.
he can consult with you then and try to get things straightened out.
Thank you, board
Okay.
members. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
The only thing I would like to add to this is, I don't know it will hurt me or not, but the truth and the reality is, when the first time this gentleman approached me, I did not say that the church.
Just let me jump in for a minute. Sir, your name is what?
My name is Arif Naseem. I am the owner of that property, 1815 Clifton Avenue.
Okay. And Mr. Nassima, at this point, since the applicant has said that they would like to postpone the case, we're adjourned as to the case. I would imagine that you might have some comments in response to what was proffered by the applicant. But at this point, the issue really isn't before us. And frankly, what did or didn't get said between the two of you is irrelevant.
Oh, Aaron, that's fine
to
then.
us. So, I hear you on that, but it's not, there's not really an issue that's in front of us right now.
Right, but I do support this, there's no doubt about it, you know. I'm a religious person, and I want more, whatever he's bringing in, I want that to happen again and again.
Okay.
So, yes,
All
I
right.
do support that.
All right, best of luck to you both.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
We need church.
I agree. Okay. All right, Mr. Henry, can you step out and see, and if you could, it seems that the parties would like to talk, and I'm not sure that there's enough time in this day to get accomplished what they need to get accomplished. So, you see what I'm saying.
Off the record, I can say, this is based on an application that said continue to use. But when you read the code, he's adding more parking spaces than what previous use had. And the code requires a review for parking lots with 5 or more spaces, that it gets referred to Department of Transportation, it goes to planning, and I think that's what they're looking to make sure that it goes through the process. So if we say, the question is, and I agree with the negative appellant, that process wasn't followed properly, and they just need to follow it with a site plan and review through the different agencies that are responsible.
Well,
So if we can get them to agree with that, I don't think they need to come back here.
well, let's see where they are.
They're aiming for a postponement, but they can't make a consensus on the postponement.
Okay, and my other suggestion is I talk to Mr. Beal and see if we can resolve it without them having to come back.
Okay,
So
all
they
right.
can postpone it.
Can,
We can
can you, Mr. Henry, can you ask, well, I guess maybe they're coming in by themselves.
Okay. I think we can resolve it.
Wow.
So with the postponement,
Of course I can.
doesn't come back.
Apologize for the delay.
That's
Which
all right.
side are we
I think
on?
we've come to a consensus and would like to request a postponement.
Okay.
And
The property owner coming in?
Mr. Allender?
All right. And we'll call the case and then we can put it on the record.
On which side do we stand on?
That's the awkward side. Technically, the negative appellant is going to be over here, and the property owner is going to be there. All right, and I'm going to call the case 2015-151, 2301 Sinclair Lane, East North Avenue, Community Development Corporation, care of Eric March. Okay, Mr. March, you were saying, oh yes, the board is aware that the parties have been trying to have a discussion towards a resolution of the issues that are between you. For the record, sir, you're the property owner, if you could state your name.
Biff Allender.
Mr. Allender? Okay. And Mr. March, you said that you've been having discussions with Mr. Allender to try to get a resolution of these matters. I think that Mr. Allender has indicated that has been desiring to have a dialogue with the community. And I guess you've been speaking and you were about ready to say where things are right now.
well, we feel that there's some issues that need to be resolved, and for that reason, and in a cooperative spirit with Mr. Allender, we would respectfully request a postponement, and so to give us the opportunity, give the community opportunity to work things out in an amicable way.
And Mr. Allender, where do you stand on that?
I agree.
Okay, all right. So I want to commend you both. A lot of times we have cases where communities and property owners aren't always so willing to work with one another to resolve their issues, and there certainly seems to be a sincere desire to do that between the parties to this case. Councilwoman, I would like to also thank you for your assistance in fostering the dialogue here. But 2015-151, 2301 Sinclair Lane is postponed. If you folks just want to let us know when you're ready to proceed, let me give you cards to you both. We can get you in on the next available date, and it may be the case, if you're able to, depending on the resolution that you reach, it may be the case that you don't even have to come back here, and that it could just simply be resolved through the process through the zoning administrator's office, but we'll sort of see where we stand on that.
Can I submit this for the file?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I can imagine you'll continue to work with the sides and try to...
Oh, yes, yes, we will.
All right.
And Councilman Carl Stokes as well.
Thanks also go out to the council.
Yes,
All right.
thank
All have a very good evening.
All right, thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
everybody.
And we're off the record.
Thanks, Mr. Allender.
Okay.
Now we gotta get some meetings scheduled.
There's nothing to deliberate about. 2015-141, 1815 Clifton Avenue was postponed. 2015-148, 4401 White Avenue was by consent, and 2015-151, 2301 Sinclair Lane was postponed. And we're adjourned. Thank you all. We've had some others that have been Mondays. Southern European parts of the